as far as Shakur Stevenson is concerned, because, it's been a lot of years. Shakur Stevenson's been trying to get these big fights for a long time. I remember back in the day when they were trying to fight guys like Josh Warrington and Leo Santa Cruz and Lomachenko, obviously, and he couldn't get those fights, right? So he had to wait a long time to get a fight of this magnitude. And when he got this performance, he performed. You can say what you want about Shakur. You can say Shakur Stevenson is not that good. You could say he's a bum. You could say a lot of things about him. But one thing you can't say is that he's not effective. One thing you can't say is that he didn't perform. The lights came on. They were very bright. There was 20,000, 21,000 plus in the Garden, and he performed. So the question now is, okay, with Shakur Stevenson now beating Teofimo Lopez, who a lot of people thought was going to beat him. Not me, but a lot of people thought Teofimo Lopez was going to get the job done and defeat Shakur Stevenson. And really and truthfully, I think trying to figure out like Shakur Stevens is up there. I don't care what you think about him. He's definitely a top 10 pound fighter. I mean, he's been a top 10 pound fighter, but for me, he's starting to get up there because the reality is this: the kid is 28 years old and he's a 4-division champion. Now, of course, you can sit here and say, well, he didn't defend in this weight class. He didn't stay at this weight class that long. I know all the arguments, but nonetheless, on black and white paper, Shakur Stevenson is a 4-division champion at the age of 28, and that doesn't grow on trees. That's not easy to accomplish. So let's try to dissect that. We're gonna go to screen share right quick, guys. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys definitely, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. All that blase super chat. But anyway, here we go. We're gonna go ahead and go to screen share, right? Because I want to figure out what do I even think Shakur Stevenson is pound for pound, because this is the Ring Magazine pound for pound list right now as it stands, right? Shakur Stevenson right now is the number 7 Ring pound for pound fighter. So that begs the question, okay, if Shakur Stevenson is 7, which he is right here, which of these fighters is Shakur Stevenson above? Is he above any of these fighters? And for me personally, if I could just be ever so honest, I see 2 fighters on this list that Shakur Stevenson is definitely above. With this win, he's definitely above them, in my opinion. And those 2 fighters are 2 fighters with a cult-like fan base in the boxing community. Like, I don't think Shakur is better than Usyk. I don't think Shakur is better than Inoue. I don't think he's better than a couple. I don't think he's better than them guys. Like Usyk and Inoue are on their own tier. Terrence Crawford was in that tier too. It was Crawford, Usyk, and Inoue, and then everyone else, right? But after that, it gets real intriguing. Now, I'll just come out and say it like this. I think Shakur Stevenson is definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, above Bam Rodriguez and Junto Nakatani. Straight up. And I'm saying this, and I'm raising both my hands up as a guy that is the number 1 source for Japanese boxing in America. And I'm saying this as a guy that loves the lighter weight category. So if there were ever 2 fighters above Shakur Stevenson for me to be biased for, based on how my channel is structured and what my preferences are in boxing, I would never say that, right? But I'm calling it fair. Bam hasn't beaten anybody close to a Teofimo Lopez on his entire resume. Shakur hasn't won. He hasn't won undisputed. Neither has Bam. I just think Shakur has scaled more. Shakur Stevenson has scaled more weight classes. He's beaten better fighters, and he's been more dominant. Like, Shakur Stevenson's never had his jaw broken by no Christian Gonzalez. So any way you want to cut it up, slice it and dice it, Shakur Stevenson is a better fighter, pound for pound, than Bam Rodriguez, based on resume, based on how many times he scaled up a weight class, based on just performance. I mean, any metric you want to go by, he's above Bam Rodriguez, right? And the same goes for Junto. I don't even think Junto won his last fight. I thought Junto got a ridiculous gift decision in his last fight. We shouldn't even be getting the Inoue Nakatani fight, if we're being honest. But they weren't gonna let the Mexican guy, Sebastian Hernandez Reyes, get the decision because Mr. Honda and the Japanese powers that be, they already had the Tokyo Dome date reserved, already on hold for May. So they weren't gonna blow all that up for little old Sebastian Hernandez Reyes. Junto's a good fighter. I don't think like Junto. I've said this in my Japanese videos about when I compare Junto to guys like Inoue and Kenshiro on their resumes. Like, Junto Nakatani's resume, I think is not as great as people say it is. And I think it's ridiculous that they even had him over Shakur Stevenson in the first place. To be honest with you, I think he's a guy that's like more on the lower top 10. Honestly, he should be probably where Oscar Collazo is, or you know, probably where Oscar Collazo is. Junto. That's just telling the truth. So if I have him above those guys, that means that I have Shakur Stevenson at no worse than 5th pound for pound. Now, if you want to argue about better Biev and Bivol, obviously you can make those arguments and say, well, Shakur has scaled more weight classes, but you know, better Biev and Bivol have better wins on the resume than Shakur does, right? So that's up for interpretation. Inoue and Usyk are right there, right in their place at 1 and 2, and you could argue if Shakur is above better Biev and Bivol for that third spot. But for me, Bam and Junto are not. They weren't better than Shakur coming into this fight, and now, especially after this fight against Teofimo Lopez, a guy at Teofimo Lopez who just 6 years ago, or a couple years ago, a couple times Teofimo Lopez has been a pound-for-pound fighter himself, and Shakur made him look like a complete amateur, right? So when you fight a guy who's been a pound-for-pound fighter, a guy who's been a multiple-time lineal champion, and you completely school him, I don't care if you think he's overrated. He has proven that he's on that level multiple times, no matter how up and down he is, right? And he performed. Bam has not fought a guy on that level. Neither has Junto Nakatani. Every time I bring up Bam, you know, Kenshiro Taraji was a pound-for-pound fighter, but you guys don't want to see that fight. You guys are okay with Bam fighting with Waldo Garcia, so it is what it is. But yeah, I would say Shakur is at no worst 5th. I'm not saying he's like I'm not saying he's definitively 3 or that I should put him above Inoue or Usyk, but he's reached the stage now where he is definitely in the top 5. When you talk about boxing, when you talk about the best fighters in the sport of boxing, those conversations have to start with his name, you know, along with those Inoues and Usyks and Bivols and Better Bievs and them kind of guys. His name has to be there, right? He's accomplished more than Junto. He's accomplished more than Bam right now, and you know, that's where I'm at with him. So we'll see how it goes. I don't really like that Conor Benn fight. I'll get to that here in a second, but that Conor Benn fight I think is a waste of time. Conor Benn's not even a world champion, so that fight won't really do anything for standing on the pound list. But right now he's no worse than 5. He's no worse than 5. He's a 4-division champion at 28 years old. A lot of people were over here, you know, dick riding Lomachenko because he won his first world title at like, what was it, 27 or 28. Shakur Stevenson became a 4-division champion by 28. So like, what are we talking about here? But anyway, I wanted to actually read this tweet from my boy Nadim. Shout out to Nadim, because it coincides with what I'm saying. Shakur really just shut out a prime fighter that's been hovering around the pound-for-pound list for years because of his career win over Lomachenko. This isn't just an amazing win, but it's an all-time great performance. And again, a lot of people complain and they said, oh, well, Shakur Stevenson didn't step on the gas. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. I think Shakur Stevenson tried to get Teo out of there. I think he did his best to get Teo out of there. Teo fought just well enough and was just enough of a threat to not get stopped. But Shakur Stevenson was putting his punches together in spots in the fight. He had Teo buzzed a couple of times. He was placing his shots really well. You know, he just didn't get him out of there. Like, he's not that kind of guy, but he tried. And he was dominant the whole way through. He was never in danger. He was never hurt. He was never buzzed. It's debatable if he ever lost a round. So I'm going to agree. I think it was one of the all-time great performances. Now, I've seen people get carried away and they call it the Shakur Stevenson Teofimo Lopez fight like they compare it to Mayweather versus Gotti. And that's disgusting because it was a great performance, but it was nowhere on the level of that performance. Because Mayweather put the exclamation point and the way he was hurting Gotti to the head and to the body and the punch selection was just on a different level than Shakur. As great as Shakur was, it was not that. But it was one of the all-time great boxing lessons that's ever been handed out in the modern era. So I'll agree with it. I'll agree with that in that regard. So we'll see.